Beach FM, locals talking to locals.
Time to say good morning to our Greater Wellington Regional Rep, Penny Gaylor. Good morning, Penny.
Good morning, everybody.
I hear your little ad there saying that we've only got a couple of more days to lodge our submissions to the long-term plan. How are they coming in?
Good. Now, last time just a few days ago, staff were saying to me that of the overall submissions, about 13% of them have come from Kapiti, so keep them rolling in. Think of this as a bit like telethon. I want to hear that people are rolling them in from Kapiti. This is the chance, like I always bang on about, there's no other bill that you pay where you actually get to have an input into how that is made up and that. So this is a really good opportunity, and there are definitely some things in there that I'm sure are good for Kapiti. There are some things in there that people won't like, that just because everybody has different views on it, and but this is your chance to express that, and if anybody would like to, they can then also come and speak to their submission. So again, no other government department, power board, food company, hospital service or anything actually gives you that opportunity.
Well, I see you might have quite a few complaining. Even the Kapiti Coast District Council are going to be lodging a complaint about the rating increase. They want you to explain it. Can you explain it all to us? Because Otaki is going to be hit very hard, and it's not a great place to be heading.
I have actually been explaining it, and I have also been explaining it to the Mayor, and I know that Regional Council staff came up weeks ago and had briefings with KCDC staff. So that has been happening.
So how can you justify such a high rate increase for
and so it's actually about looking at the breakdown of what's made that up, and I've talked about it kind of coming from three different areas. So in some ways there are three different ways that you can kind of break down your submissions in terms of, there's that figure of an element of it, just over a third of the increase is from things that are new investments, like what I've talked about, the things that we want in Kapiti. This is the stuff that can get done. For example, the buying the new trains that will continue and sustain the service from Palmerston North that picks people up at Otaki and Waikanae and goes all the way through to Wellington. Things like having the hours of the Waikanae train station open longer so that the ticketing office and the toilets are open longer. That's what people have lobbied me to ask for. Getting more restoration planting going on at Queen Elizabeth Park. That's what people are wanting, and so that's the kind of stuff that we've put in, and that equates to the kind of stuff that then brings that up that third. Another part of it, just under a kind of a third of it, is that bit where we have had separately from the long-term plan reviewing the revenue and finance policy for regional council, and specifically this time round it was the public transport and the flood protection. And so because Kapiti had previously been quite well subsidised by Wellington City people, which is nearly 200,000 people, bringing it to a paying a fair share ends up lifting us quite a bit. So nearly a third of that rate increase is just that kind of domain alone. But again, you can submit on that and tell us what's wrong with that, and share your views, share your rationale for why it shouldn't be the case. And then the other part, which is probably just over a third of the increase, is actually something that happens every time we do a rates rejig, I guess. It's that equalised capital value. And so the big, and I would say for us in Kapiti, and like everybody, we're not fortune tellers. The new valuations for our homes and for our businesses lifts that or lowers that. And probably there have been a number of years where we in Kapiti have not had an increase because everywhere else had higher increases in the value of their properties. This time round, Kapiti, I know, everybody, those valuations that came out from the August date last year that we got in recent times, that then takes its time to flow into regional council through the TAs. We in Kapiti had the highest increases across the whole of kind of the Huts, Wellington City and Poirua. So the double whammy for us has been unexpectedly, I would say.
So you're going to go into bat for us and say, no, we don't want that sort of thing up here because that's what you're representing us for. Can't go along just what they say down in Wellington.
No, and that's what I'm saying, though, is like you actually also have to, and I have to say, but you have to realise that we have to have people explain what their views are as well, because it reinforces what I'm saying at the table. And that's why I have absolutely been encouraging week after week in my columns to encourage people to submit. And I think every time I've done a radio interview with you, I've certainly encouraged people to submit and try to break down what is a really complex matter, but it's people's money. So I really have wanted people to take notice of it, and certainly submit is really important.
So you'll be talking, you will be looking at those submissions that have been put in by the Kapiti Otaki people and saying, right, well, this is what I'm going to be speaking about. I'm speaking on behalf of them, not on behalf of the Greater Wellington Regional Council sort of thing. And
so what that process then happens is that we get all those submissions, and ahead of any deliberations, we get to read all those submissions, and then we will debate the content and the kind of the new ideas they might have brought up, or just the different perspectives, or just the volume of this is what they're saying en masse. Of course, it's not always about the mass. It's just here are good ideas. Here are I think the power of people's personal submissions is often good and weighty in itself. And I think that bringing personal kind of viewpoints to it, these processes can be quite dehumanized, and that is why submissions are really powerful, because it tells the real world story for people.
So we've been treating...
I just want to encourage that.
Yeah, like Wairarapa, they've got a little bit of compensation, haven't they? Or dispensation, I should say, from this sort of carry-on that's going on at the moment. Is that right?
Oh, actually, no. They've been heavier hit than we have in Kapiti. Flood protection for them is making a huge impact. They have had very high increases in their property values, very high. And as I say, the ebb and flow of that essentially, which I don't know, have you ever had the equalised capital value discussed in your interviews previously when there were regional council increases? Because I don't think that was something that was really well explored and shared with our district for us to properly understand how it kind of works across the whole region, and that some years we certainly probably, in those years, and let's be honest, in those years where they don't affect us, or maybe we even have to pay less of a share of the rates, it's all good. And of course this year, it's really hard to swallow, because it, as I say, it equates for slightly over a third of what the increases are about. And of course, naturally, we're going to go, oh, well, gosh, do we really want those this year? That's the whole problem, well, not the problem, but the reality of how these rate processes work and kind of across a council that has a whole lot of different areas, and working out how people pay their share. So, our average our average house valuation for the Kapiti district has gone up $64,000. So, obviously, I'm sure everybody in Kapiti actually who owns a home, that has increased in value. So how the rates work is that depending on the value of your home, or it could be depending on the value of the capital valuation of your property, you pay a percentage share of the rates. So therefore, when the value of your home lifts in a higher proportion to somebody else's, that's how you end up paying more in your rates.
So an equalising.
Apologies if I'm not as good as in everyday English sort of explaining that. It is incredibly complex, I know, but it's certainly something that everybody has a hefty rates bill, whether it's from your TA or from your regional council, and it's all compounded. So that's why I'm always sort of trying to stress to people to, as much as they can, to deep dive into what the makeup of those rates are.
So by equalising it, you're saying that some areas like Wellington City will be getting cheaper rates from Greater Wellington Regional Council?
Well, that's a slant that I actually wouldn't say would be fair on Wellington, because they've actually been paying more than their share.
Yes, so therefore they're going to get a reduction, aren't they?
Well, no, they're not getting a reduction. They're actually...
Well, you can't charge them the same if you're going to equalise it right throughout the area and still expect them to pay the same.
Yeah, but they do. I don't know if you've read one of my Kapiti News columns about 3 weeks ago. I listed how much rates everybody actually pays. Kapiti was the lowest dollar figure in terms of what we pay in the region. So we don't pay anywhere near as what Wellington City does, even as Porirua or even as either of the huts.
Yeah, well, that's what I'm saying.
I exclude the Wairarapa from that because they do not, of course, have the public transport service that we now have here in Kapiti.
So I still come back to the argument that if you're going to equalise it throughout the region, therefore somebody must be going to get it cheaper. And you're saying Wellington City's been subsidising these areas. Well, they're not going to be subsidising now. They're going to get it spread across the whole region, so they must get it cheaper.
Yep. If you're speaking like that, I'd say that's, in the simplest terms, absolutely right.
So
but they will still pay in Wellington, they will still pay a dollar figure more than us. We're not ending up paying the same amount of money as anybody in the Wellington City.
So Otaki people are going to be hit pretty hard, aren't they, for this flood protection? And can they afford that? That's what you've got to ask. Do you have to do it all in one hit, or can you spread it over a number of years? And
that's what the options are. And if you look into the draft long-term plan, the separate consultation document on that revenue and finance policy change is that, how do we look at transitioning it? And again, going to that, Wellington City, who essentially gets about 1% of the benefit, has actually been paying about 33% of the monies for that flood protection. So it is a bit of a difficult one for us to kind of counter-argue, isn't it? So I think it needs to therefore be well thought out and explained about, it's actually about the dollar impact on people's ability to pay, which is, I think what you're saying, and that's absolutely right. The trouble for us is that we've actually been getting 14% of the benefit, but not paying 14% of the benefit. And the new policy that is being proposed is to get us up to paying 14% of the cost of it for 14% of the benefit.
So are Otaki people going to be able to afford it?
Well, that's the thing, is because it's then actually not based on a person's income, it's based on the value of a person's home.
So rentals will go up accordingly?
Yes.
And therefore you're going to cut people out, they're going to cause more hardship up in that particular area.
Well,
so that's what I'm coming back to. You'll be going in to fight for us to say, hey, no, well, this is not on.
Yeah, and that's why I have been saying I want people to give submissions so they can talk about the impact. So, and I've also had people contact me, and I've just doing one, for example, where it's somebody talking about how much they've looking at their increase. So I've asked staff, and they're just preparing the material for me at the moment, to say, let's look at the breakdown of this person for this person's specific example. And those sorts of things I think are really helpful for them to understand, for me to then kind of talk to, because this is the real world impact. And then also for staff to see, this is, let's take it out of formulas and the kind of the bookkeeping talk and put it into the people impact tool.
Can a Greater Wellington Regional Council cut down on their expenses then? Is that another way of looking at it?
Well, I have to say there is nothing about increased expenses that is in any way an increase in a rates dollar.
Right.
I mean, we haven't increased any expenses in the Greater Wellington Regional Council's operating budget. We have got more monies invested into the resilience work that we do at Regional Council. A huge chunk of money is being called on to pay the ever-increasing insurance for a regional council, so something like potentially another $1 million this year. So imagine how much that just chews up of rates.
Yes, you're certainly going to be hit hard, all right, and you've had the earthquakes too.
So that's why I said at least we can see that there are. So I've been trying to break it down to three different kind of parts of the argument here. As I say, that equalised capital value is a separate part, and it's something that happens every year, and it's not. It's actually just an automatic thing. And then the other part of it is the things where I've talked about are essentially the investments for Kapiti, and we've got the potential to have some really good wins for us. And as I say, they're things I've put on the table because they're things that I was lobbied to put on the table. And then the other part is not the long-term plan, but it's a revenue and financing policy change. And I guess if anything, the thing I'd say about that too is that has been in the too hard basket, I gather, for a couple of decades. It's certainly been in place for a couple of decades, and as the increase of, when that policy was put in place, if it was, 2 decades ago, we of course didn't have the train to Waikai. So now that we do, 6 or 7 years later, they're kind of turning around and saying, well, actually, now that you have increased public transport service, but you haven't really been paying for that as much as you should have been if we were talking about rates being distributed fairly. So,
but we pay for it in our fares, don't we?
Yeah, but everybody pays fares who uses it. But all aspects of public transport, other than the Capital Connection, is the one exception in the entire country. Ratepayers pay for a share of public transport regardless of whether they use it or not because of the public good element. Also, NZTA pays for a big chunk of public transport, again, for the greater public good. And then people who put the money across the till on the bus or the train, they're paying for about 50% of it. Otherwise, if we got them to pay 100, well, nobody would use it because it'd be so expensive, but it's so important for our public good.
Penny, we thank you for your explanation today, and we'll have a chat next week if we can.
I know it is really fraught, and that's why this is the one kind of time in every council's term where you do want people speaking up about this. There is the website that is www.whatmatters.co.nz. I had somebody I was talking to the other day. She said it took her 1 minute and a half to do her submission. So seriously, that's like click, click, click. She had done it. So, it can be that quick and simple for people, please.
Lovely. Thank you very much for your explanation.
Thank you.
Righto, Penny Gaylor, our Greater Wellington Regional Rep here on Beach FM.
106.3 Beach FM.